Welcome to Spark Sessions. I'm your host, Sonya Locke, and this girl is on fire. Today's guest is the voice for what so many women are afraid to say out loud. She's a Tantra coach, intimacy expert, and the founder and CEO of CEO on Fire and Elixr, a new AI-powered coaching platform for Gen Z, helping them rewrite the rules of love. But Sarrah Rose's power didn't begin in the spotlight. It began in silence. Raised in a strict household, she grew up with a message so many women know so well. Be quiet, be small, be good. Today, she's teaching women to unlearn that message and reclaim their power through presence, embodiment, and pleasure. This episode is about what happens when a woman stops performing for the world and start leading from within. Sarrah, I am so excited to have you here today. I think that your voice and what you have to say is something all of our audience wants to hear and just learn how to, be ourselves and not sit in silence. It's just so exciting. Everything that you've accomplished, and not just for our generation, but for the future generations that's coming up. And I love that you have both the coaching side and then the AI-powered technology side to bring it to even a larger voice. But I'm so very honored to have you here, and I think you're just absolutely brilliant. And so thank you so much, and
thank you.
Cheers. So let's get started and kind of how you got to where you are today. What was the segment I like to call is the roots to rise? What was that flicker? What were you searching for that led you here to all that you've accomplished so far?
Yeah, and I think that flicker, it comes at different points in life, right? It's not just a one-time thing, but there's different moments. And, I remember I grew up in Arizona and I was graduating from high school and had the opportunity to go to university there, and I wanted to be in New York. I had this desire to come here, to be in the city, and that flicker was burning so bright in me, and I think and we all have this. We all have those moments in life where there is that urge, that desire inside, but a lot of us don't follow it, or we think we can't, or we think we're not worthy of it, or, circumstances won't allow us. For better or worse, I think I'm the kind of person who will do that, and, who knows where it's going to lead. But, throughout life, there's been those moments, and absolutely there are times that I've ignored it and not followed that. But I don't regret the times that I have.
So what were some of the big moments that you said you moved to New York from Phoenix? That was a big, bold move. How old were you when you came here?
So I was 17 when I moved here. I had graduated from high school, and it was 2 weeks later, I was on the plane to New York. And I came here to be a model. I got an agent, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to go to New York and be in the modeling industry. And so I did that. And then I explored the fashion industry. So I was in the fashion industry for several years. I worked at Bergdorf Goodman. I was in their personal shopping department. I went back to school for fashion and did the fashion industry. And I really liked it. It was just creative and fun and interesting. Obviously, it's hard work like any industry is, but I enjoyed that. And that was a really fun time in my life.
What do you feel like that taught you, to where you are now as a CEO? What did that early days kind of teach you and shape your life now?
I would say I was raised in Phoenix and I grew up in New York. You will grow up very fast in New York City. I think I was very fortunate though. My boss was an amazing mentor to me. And she really taught me so much about being a woman in New York City and having a voice and being empowered. She's this tiny little woman running around, but just so respected and so powerful, big, strong voice. And everyone knew who she was, and she just owned it. She owned her space. And I really learned a lot from her.
I think that's so much that we can take to all the young women kind of growing up is like, I think that's a message that is resonate with everybody is owning yourself, right? We're all different and like, how do we embrace that? So, so tell me how you got to be an intimacy coach and tell me a little bit about like how you became a Tantra coach. Like that's really interesting, I think. What brought you to that?
Yeah, so if you think about it, I mean, people are like, how did you go from fashion to Tantra? And I actually don't think it's that big of a disconnect. Like it's beauty, it's this just being in touch with that romantic side of oneself, the things you can do with fashion to express yourself. So I don't think that the overlap is actually that there isn't too much of a disconnect there. Like there is an overlap. And I got married very young, ended up moving to Texas, and I had 2 children there, went through a divorce. And then I was like, okay, who am I? I didn't have a career at that time. When I first moved to Texas, I was actually doing private banking, had left fashion because I was no longer in New York. So then I was in the private banking world, and that was very different and not something I really liked very much. But then I had my kids, and I was staying home with them, so I didn't have a career when I was going through a divorce, and I was like, what is next? Who am I? And I had been doing yoga over the years and just explored holistic health, and it was something that was very interesting to me, working with herbs and, just the natural way of living. My kids actually look back on that time, they're like, you were such a granola mom. And it was like, everything was handmade. We had a garden and it was growing the food. I had a vegetable co-op. So it was like very organic, all natural. And so Tantra was just another expression of that. So I went to India and I was working there with another amazing female leader in the space. Gurmukh Karkhalsa was my teacher. Incredible. I really, to this day, just think back on her, and it makes me emotional to remember seeing her there on the stage teaching us, and just the embodiment of all of this, and just her power and her strength. And so, I've had some really incredible women in my life that were pivotal and that just really showed me strength and their voice and their power. And yeah, I think
that's beautiful. How long were you in India?
How long was I in India?
Uh-huh.
Let's see. In 2013, I went about a month, I think. It was a very intensive program. So we were up at 3 o'clock in the morning, in the Himalayan mountains, at the base of them, by the Ganges River. And so it's tradition there to get up at 3 a.m. and you actually go dip in the river. So you get in this freezing cold river.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that was a part of the process. And then by 3:30 in the meditation hall, doing a 2.5-hour meditation every morning. And then we'd break for breakfast, come back, and then do our training throughout the day until 8 p.m. So it was very intensive for that month. And then I went back again in 2024. It was there longer, similar type program though. And yeah, so.
Wow. So with all the stuff that you had gone through previous, was that kind of like a healing and getting in touch with your body and like really your soul? And
it was such a healing process. Just remember, you just sit there for hours in meditation or the different postures that we're in. You can hold a different posture for 15 minutes to an hour, depending what it is. And just the transformation that happens in the body when you do that, and you have to be so connected. It like forces you to be connected to what's happening internally.
wow.
And that's the way it's designed, is to, really quiet the mind and just to be present with what's happening right now. And so those experiences really, they teach you stamina and how to get through challenging situations with presence and with connection. So I think it was absolutely some of the best training I've ever done.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I can't imagine holding a posture for an hour. I can barely hold it for 5 minutes most of the time. But I mean, yeah, I can imagine what that really kind of aligns you with your inner self and your body and feeling all of that. And I think we talk a lot with people about tuning out, right? There's so much noise in the world. And how do you tune that out by becoming introspective? That's amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me how that led you to be a life coach for all these ambitious women, like with, tell us a little bit about CEO on Fire and what brought you there.
So after that, I did a coaching certification program, and it was a year base level certification that was, again, like very, very deep work. And then I continued on and did additional modules within that. So I did probably about 2 years of coaching training after that, of really working with this material from a coaching perspective. And that is when, that's when I started coaching people in transition, because there's a difference between being a teacher and being a coach. There's some similarities, but, as a coach, I was really trained in goal setting and forward thinking and what is next, and how to notice, what is happening right now and how is that impacting where I'm going, and how do I connect with myself in a different way right now to navigate the next stage of my life. And so that type of approach works well for CEOs who are, I don't want to look back, I don't want to just be stuck in the past. I want to be able to connect and be present right now. And we're also, what's the next step here?
Right.
We don't want to stay stuck. It's the continual evolution and the growth of it.
And that is so important. I mean, a CEO's life sometimes can be very lonely, right? Like you really don't have anybody you can connect with that helps guide you. So you kind of have to learn that own guidance and that motivation. You're motivating others. How do you do that? So what are some of the lessons that you're able to teach your patients that, or I guess, would you call them patients or would you call them students? Okay, clients, yes.
Yeah.
Like how are you able to coach them to, I guess, get that same connection you got from all of your layered past? Like you have so many layers. It's fascinating and really good.
Oh, thank you. The connection comes from connecting, like so Tantra is an interweaving. If you think about two separate things that are being woven together, it literally becomes one. And it's in that interweaving that there is peace, because there's no longer the push and pull of the individual. And for so many people, we're very trained in the I and in the self, and that just the me and what we need to do. We live in a very individualistic society, and that's okay to a point, but when it comes to relationships, sometimes that needs to go away, and there needs to be the opportunity for the connection, the interweaving, the oneness to happen. Yeah. And so that's really the what happens with tantric practices is the elevation into that oneness. And this is something that gurus have talked about for years. Be here now, the oneness aspect of it. And I think for a lot of people it doesn't land, like it's too esoteric, but it's real. Like when you get to that point of just pure connection, then the polarities, the dualism, all of that disappears, and you're able to just experience the being with another. And there is bliss that can be found in that state. I think a lot of people who, when they're in conflict in their relationships, it comes from the I, and it comes from I want or I need. And it's fine to want, and it's fine to need, and to communicate those with your partner. But there needs to be a resolution of that as well, so you can come into the state of being together.
That's beautiful. And so when you, with your clients, do you see both the CEO and their significant other, or how do you bridge that gap if you're treating just one?
No, I only work with the executives themselves, and so it is the one-on-one coaching. But that's where they get to learn. It's where it's their training ground, and that's where they get to connect with themselves. And the more that you can feel what's happening in your own body and be in tune with that, then it's actually easier to apply that with a partner. So a lot of tantric practices can be easier to learn on your own and then apply them with a partner. So it works.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So then tell me about Elixr, because that, I think you talk about rewriting the rules of love for Gen Z, and Gen Z is always connected, right? That's like actually our last podcast. It was all about like rewriting like social media and things like that. But I mean, how is your new platform kind of bringing your life lessons to that generation?
Well, Gen Z is connected when it comes to digital connection. And I don't know. I mean, I've got children who are Gen Z, and I see actually really great friendships that they have. So I get that there are a lot of statistics around Gen Z, and they're struggling with loneliness, and they're struggling with social cues after the pandemic. And I do believe that is true, but of course there's always, there's variances within that. So it's definitely not all of Gen Z, and they're connecting in their own way. Just because maybe it's not how we were connecting previously doesn't mean they're not connecting, and I think that's the thing. We can get so caught up in the right and wrong, and again, the duality of it all, and not just be present with what is. I think we're all human, and we're all going to experience humanity no matter what happens or where we are. It doesn't matter if it's the technology is there. Okay, it's there, it's in our hands, we're engaging in it, but maybe it's just a new way, right? Like maybe we're just going into a new version of ourselves. I don't know, right? And I think that we get too caught up in this is right or this is wrong, rather than, okay, let's just see what happens here.
I like it because it's like it's bringing their language to them, right? Because I have two Gen Z kids myself, a son and a daughter, and it is different. So I think it's great that you're embracing technology to kind of bring your message and your coaching to that generation that is looking for that same connection and that oneness, but in their own way, right?
Yeah.
So that's great. That's great. So tell me exactly what Elixr is and how it speaks to this new generation.
So Elixr is a love app, and to my knowledge, it's the only love app that exists, especially in this way. So there's an assessment that everybody takes, and it's a series of questions that helps us understand what your love essence is. And it's just how you relate in love. Like, what's the primary experiences you have? There's 7 different essences, and they're based on my experience with Tantra, and the way that I coach people in Tantra and my understanding of it, and how I've seen these throughout with my clients throughout the years. So these 7 essences are woven throughout Elixr. We focus on self-love, friendships, dating, romantic relationships, sexuality, and breakups. So, everybody is, in one of these different stages of life where they're experiencing these different types of relationships. We all have our relationship with ourselves, and so there's an opportunity for everybody to come to Elixr. And you can work with coaches, you can do group coaching, group workshops. You can also work with our chatbot, which is trained in our method. So if you chat with the chatbot, you're not going to get just random information. It's going to respond to you specifically with the Elixr method. So that's available 24/7. And then we have incredible video courses as well. So if you don't want to show up for a live session, but you still want to hear directly from a coach, You can say, okay, well, I want to watch videos around breakups, specifically around the instinctive essence. And then you can go watch the video series that we have for that.
Wow, that's really interesting because I don't even think about that. I mean, everybody talks about love language, but this is love essence. And
Yeah.
and you're right. You're in one of those stages, right? And everybody needs self-love. So
Yep.
that's really powerful. And when did Elixr launch live?
So we just launched live within the last few months, so not
Oh.
that long ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I bet it's getting a lot of traction and stuff. So that's really amazing.
Thank you.
So I guess now, I mean, you've got two different paths. You've been through everything from fashion to banking to stay-at-home mom, like, I mean, all of these different areas. When would you say is when your passion met your purpose?
I actually remember being at home, at my home in Austin, and I remember the day, and I don't remember exactly what time in my life it was. I mean, sometime obviously when I was in that time period in Austin, but I was like there at home, and I just felt this sense of like, yes, like this is what I'm here to do. This is my purpose. This is what I love. And I think during that time in my life, I know I was doing the coaching certification that I was doing, and there was so much growth happening and a lot of awakenings. And Tantra, it facilitates like different levels of self-awareness, and those self-awareness feels like a new awakening, like a new level of understanding. And then it's like, okay, well, now I'm used to that. What's the next one? And there's a constant evolution available to people. But I remember that time, and it just felt like the sense of I'm home. I've found myself, and I know what I'm here to do.
Well, I think so many people probably thank you for finding that.
Thank you.
So, I mean, getting to where you are, I mean, you walked away from so many things, right? I mean, you obviously had a lot of burns, as we like to call it, in your life. So talk to me a little bit about coming through those fires, like those burns, those challenges that got you to this inner peace that I just feel so calm talking to you. But like tell me some of the burns and how you also are coaching others to get through that. Like we talk about breakups, but also just getting in touch with their own intimacy.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's the experiences that I've had give me my humanness, and that's ultimately what makes me most effective, is just being able to be real with people. And the clients that I work with, we form really amazing relationships, and they can just be, they can just show up and be themselves, and they don't have to put on the roles that they typically have to play. And we all have so many identities that we carry, and that's normal, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's the identity of being a mom, identity of being a CEO, the identity of being a partner or a friend, or there's all these different roles that we take on, and they all make up us. But sometimes just showing up, as yourself, and not having to think about those other things, it feels good for people.
So it's almost kind of like embracing the burn as part of you, right? I mean, yeah. I think that's about the journey of learning that self-discovery.
And I think because I've had so many experiences personally and through people I've worked with, that nothing surprises me. There's no judgment. And it's really just, okay, are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Are you content? Is this where you want to be? Is what you're doing getting you the results that you want? And if not, then let's shift that. Let's move in another direction. Not because you're wrong, not because you're bad, but because you want something different and you deserve to have that.
That's such a powerful message and stuff. I mean, how do you get that with somebody that like comes to you, which I'm sure there's a lot that probably come and they have like kind of resistance. Like, is this really going to help? But how do you get them to find that inner happiness, I guess?
Yeah, it's up to them to take the first step. And if they're willing to show up, if they're willing to take the risk, then we start with where they are. And yeah, it was just bit by bit, the exploration. And I think that's really what's key. It's, yes, Elixr has a method, Sonya on Fire has a method, but it's more than anything, the method is an exploration.
Yeah.
And that's part of human. We're being human. You're exploring the culture you were raised in, the societal impact, the impact of your gender, of the color of your skin. Like, all of these things are so individual, and they create these experiences that we've had, and we all have a different perspective on life because of them. And sometimes it's just an exploration of these perspectives and how we get to where we are, not necessarily because that's what we want or what we believe or what we would have chosen, but we were conditioned into it, and you just go along with it without a whole lot of questioning a lot of the time. And so when you get to start to explore, who am I? What do I want? Not what have I been conditioned into, there's opportunity for a lot of change to happen.
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, it really does break down because, like I said, we all have so many different layers and things that have happened in our lives, the burns, the challenges. Mm-hmm. But how do you get past it and make it part of you versus just be like, woe is me, right?
Yes.
Which I think is really what you're teaching and stuff. And how have you translated that into tech? I mean, I think that's also really fascinating is, like you said, I don't think there is another app like that out there. Yeah. Is what got you that idea that you needed to bring this message out?
I wanted to be able to scale my coaching, and thankfully we live in a time where technology facilitates that, and so I had the idea and want to create a legacy. Like, I've done a lot with my career. I know the impact of the work that I do. It really changes lives, helps people feel better. And now there's an opportunity to support an entire generation in this. And the technology is what's gonna help us get there.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. I mean, like I said, I have 2 kids myself, and I know that they look back at everything like my divorce and stuff like that and kind of blame their relationship stuff on that. But sometimes it's like, no, that's just part of life. You have to kind of embrace it, that it's part of you, and do it as a positive. So I think it's a great message that you're getting out there. What about you? Have you ever experienced burnout and where you're just like, nope, I'm taking a break. All of you guys take care of yourself for a while? I mean,
I don't think I'm good at that part of it. So no, it's burnout. It's real for all of us. I definitely get to the point sometimes of feeling overwhelmed, and it can be a lot to juggle everything. And but I think it's life, and coping, I like to think of it as coping mechanisms, but just, I am an introvert. I do need space to get away and just be by myself, even if it's, just walking up Madison Avenue and looking at the shops and, like walking through Central Park. So walking definitely helps me get all the thoughts out. It's like they kind of come out as with the movement of my body. I think we all have different ways that we express ourselves best, and movement is definitely for me. So any type of exercise, if it's going to spin class or whatever it might be, but just that movement helps me tremendously.
That's amazing. I think that kind of leads us to my favorite section of Spark Sessions is like the burning question. So you talk a lot about, I guess a lot of us live in a performance, right? Society has taught us this is our role, this is how we're supposed to act. We kind of shut that off. And so some of the statistics I think that's really interesting is that 78% of women leaders say that they felt like they had to really hide parts of themselves. And we talk about that a lot. Like, you have to dim one light for another, and you can't take full ownership of both, right? And 1 in 2 women say that they feel disconnected from their body due to chronic stress and performance-based work culture, like who they have to be at work, especially to be a CEO, right? I know, like a lot from my generation, feel like they had to be in more of a male role versus embracing their femininity, embracing their sexuality. And so one of the things also too is women who incorporate embodiment or women who incorporate embodiment or somatic practices into their leadership, they say, are 3 times more likely to report higher self-confidence, clarity, and creativity. So I guess the burning question is, what if the most radical thing a woman can do, or that gives her power, is to really just truly embrace who she is? Mm-hmm. How do you teach people that, or how do we change society to get rid of some of these performances?
Right. And I don't do a lot on social media, so it's always the joke in my house that I'm the last to know of anything that's going on. Like if there's, some crazy funny thing and everyone's making a meme about it, I'll find out like a week later and be like, "Do you know about it?" They're like, yeah, that's so old, I just focus on what I'm doing, and I think I can get a little tunnel visioned about that. But it's probably healthy because I'm not as exposed to a lot of what's going on. And that's a positive of my upbringing, where I wasn't exposed to a lot of what was going on in culture. And so I didn't grow up with that needing to be a necessity in my life. I'm like, I exist just fine, not knowing like all these things, And so I think it's just about, removing yourself from it. And you don't have to be connected to these things. You don't have to view all of this. And is it there? Sure. I mean, it's not like I don't get on social media and scroll from time to time, but it's definitely not something that is a priority in my life. I really don't care what all these other people are doing. I'm living my life. And, I think for me, it's just pretty simple. How do you remove yourself from it? You just do.
Yeah. And I think exploring your own layers, that's just as interesting a story as somebody's real, right? There's so much we have to explore within ourselves and stuff. Mm-hmm. And with women leaders, I think that another thing that's really interesting with your practice is really not only owning their femininity, but also their sensuality and how they still can reclaim power. So how do you think is the best way for this future generation to reclaim their power and their own interpersonal power, I guess, and find their passion?
Yeah, it is very challenging because women are still very sexualized, and our sexuality as women is often not used for us as individuals, but for the objectification from others, for the pleasure of others. And that's a huge barrier that we still have to get through. And there isn't an easy answer to it, unfortunately. I think, women who are sensual and are connected, they are objectified, and it's not right. And I'm just, all we can do is educate, and the next generation will hopefully be better, and hopefully we keep making progress. And I do think it's better than it used to be. But it's a challenge, Women really struggle with being respected, with being taken seriously, just because they're a woman. And then if you add in any layer of sensuality to that, then the being respected or taken seriously, it just goes down from there. So, for a woman, often it's like, okay, well, if you look a certain way, if you're, if society says you're attractive, then you might get in the door, right? It's going to open doors for you, but doesn't mean you're going to be taken seriously once you're there. And it's just, it's bad. It's, but it is what it is. And education and helping the younger generation make changes, what we teach our children, that's all you can do is.
Yeah. And sometimes it comes from, and not just men, but it comes from women too.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I think that's where a lot of that comes from, is that, and we had Miss Georgia USA on, and she was brilliant because she also was like, just graduated with her nurse practitioner, and the whole thing was, beauty and brains. Like, why in today's society are we still expected to be one or the other? Mm-hmm. So do we just say, who cares? Like, who cares what society thinks? If I want to feel, sensual and attractive mm-hmm. and feminine, I can still be in power. And then just say, forget it and own yourself. Is that really kind of what I think your app probably teaches people, is owning themselves and their own body?
And having the confidence, but that doesn't mean that there won't be consequences, right?
Right.
You can own it, and you can live your life according to how you want to live it. And you're probably still going to have consequences for it. It's balancing that, and it's a choice that every individual has to make for themselves. We're all trying to make it through. We're all trying to survive, and the choices that people make about this, I think, really for a lot of women come down to survival. And it's that, okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to behave in order to pay rent, to pay for my kids' food, to, have the car to get them to school? And so they're making decisions based on that.
Right. So what do you teach your children? You have a son and a daughter.
I do.
What do you teach them about how to, I guess, go through these challenges of what society is still teaching, but what they really should do to be happy, right? Their own true happiness, to get through, I guess, the consequences that they choose, right?
Yeah. I think my kids are very fortunate. While, like everybody, they've had a lot that they've overcome and challenges that they've had in their lives, but they also have a lot of privilege, and they are, part of a community and a segment of society that is more educated and does have more awareness around all this. And so with that comes the privilege of, it's okay to, as a girl, to speak up, as a girl to just be yourself. My daughter, she gets to be in that place. And it's not that she doesn't see the rest of society, and she understands it exists, but I've been very intentional about putting her in spaces where she can be herself and be celebrated for her intelligence. And my son as well, he's just raised hearing about this constantly. He probably, knew the words misogyny and chauvinism before anything else, he knows how not to behave. And so it is just teaching. And my son, his girlfriend, she actually really touched my heart. When I first met her, she thanked me for how wonderful and respectful he is to her, and how he's so different than other boys that she's come across. And so I can only hope that the teachings have helped.
Well, and sometimes it's just teaching one person, or
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite quotes was about, if you could just change 10 people's life and compel them to change 10 people's lives, and you can change the whole world, right? And it's kind of that same thing, that intentional, how you're raising your sons and daughters, to have that respect and that understanding, I guess, and then hopefully that they're passing it on as well. I think that was brilliant. So I guess next is a segment called Fanning the Flames. And like I said, we've gotten so many inspirations, because it is just listening to one person at a time, like what's some of their rituals that people can kind of incorporate to quiet that noise and keep them fueled. So we talked a little bit about walking and getting out and in touch with your body, but what's some of the ways that you continue to fan your flame so that you can give to others, I guess?
So for me, it's taking care of my relationship. That's very important. And keeping that connection alive is in the midst of all the craziness. There's so much that my partner and I are juggling, and so we connect every day, and that's That's probably, I mean, I'd say that's my biggest ritual right now. That's where my focus is. It's just like filling each other up by coming together and experiencing that oneness, and just the rest that comes from being with each other. And so that's really my focus at this time.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So do you still meditate a lot, like your practices that you brought with that? Do you have that on a daily basis, or?
So I don't do the 2.5 hour morning
You don't have time for that
anymore. So no, I don't do that. But embodiment and just being the practice of presence, is something that I practiced for so long that I just incorporate it into my day. If I need to lay on my acupressure mat, I will do that. If I need to do breath work at some point in the day, I will do it. If I need to stop and do some meditation, so I have all the tools, and I think I'm very connected to checking in with what is it that I need right now. And that's the beauty of somatic work. Is somatic work teaches you to notice what are the sensations in my body and connect there. And okay, so if the sensations right now are warm and glowing and streaming and this feels good, what do I want to do to facilitate more of this? If the sensations in my body are tension, contraction, I feel cold, it feels dark, it feels murky. Okay, what do I need to clear that out? And, sometimes it's bringing attention to it. Sometimes it's asking myself, okay, what do I need? Maybe it's just compassion and empathy for what I'm dealing with at that moment in time, but just the somatic work is probably the thing that has impacted me the most personally. And it is the foundation of all the work that I do. Is just, that is the connection with the body, the sensations, the language of the body. And so I do that all day long. I'm just connecting with that.
Is that something that also is in your app at all? Like, is
Yes.
teaching people how to get connected with their body?
Mm-hmm.
That's brilliant.
So our AI chatbot Bliss is the bot's name. We'll guide people through different practices to do right there on the spot.
That's brilliant. Really brilliant. I need to look at that. Yeah. So your app is not just for Gen Z. It's great for Gen Z, but it's really for everybody, right?
Anybody can use it.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Perfect. Yeah. So you talked about creating the app so that you can create a legacy, I guess. So let's talk about the most important part of Spark Sessions is, passing the torch. What do you hope your legacy is going to be, and what kind of advice do you want to give, I guess, any woman that's listening today? Like, that's the most important thing.
It is about giving back, and whatever experiences we have in life, we have the opportunity to use those experiences to help others. And I think that's one of the gifts of humanity, right? Is that we can teach others, we can share our wisdom with others. And so Elixr is that. It's an opportunity to say, like, hey, I've been there, I've gone through this, I've got incredible coaches on my team that are sharing their wisdom as well. And, we've all worked together really hard to create this experience for people to just feel better, and all the mystical traditions, that's what they do. They give us this opportunity to step outside the norm. And yes, we've got our day to day. Like we're in the rat race, right? Like we're not really going to just change everything overnight. But what we can do is we can say, okay, but now I'm going to take 5 minutes, or now I'm going to take an hour to step outside of that and experience something different. And that's where we give our minds a rest. And that's where we fill ourselves back up, is in those moments that we step outside of the ordinary and into the mystical or the spiritual, whatever you want to call it. And so that's the legacy of Elixr, is giving people those moments to find the other parts of themselves, just to explore that, to go there.
I mean, it's such a healthy attitude, and to, like I said, own those experiences. So go back to your 17-year-old self, moving to New York and taking that big, bold move. What would you tell her now? What did she feel then? What would you go back and tell her?
Yeah, at that time, I was very excited about being in New York and what I was doing. And, I had a lot of aspirations, and I wanted a career, and I wanted to be successful. And I let myself go back into the old patterns and the old way of being, and I abandoned a lot of my dreams and my desires, in order to support someone else and to be in a relationship that was very disempowering to me. And I lost that part of myself, and so thankfully I got divorced and was able to go on that journey and to be myself again. And the experiences are what they are, right? You can't go back, you can't change them, and without them I wouldn't be who I am today. So it's hard to even say, would I choose to go through them again? No. But I'm grateful for who I am, right? And so it is what it is. But yeah, I think that
No, I get that, and I think that's what your legacy is. And I mean, like, the whole the knowledge of working back into yourself. I think that is so important for this next generation to learn, and embracing those experiences. They're part of you, right?
They are.
You can't change them. So, how does that teach you, right?
Mm-hmm. And how do you use those to move forward? How do you use them to grow? How do you use them to become who you want to be and not let them hold you back? Because that's the worst thing that can happen, is when we allow the experiences we have to hold us back and we become disempowered because of them. And it's okay to, maybe you go there for a bit and there's those self-pity and, okay, indulge, right? Explore that experience, but don't stay stuck there. Come out, grow, move on.
And I'm so glad that you did create a digital way so that you can expand your practice, because you can't see that many people, right? Like, not by yourself. So having that to where you can bring that kind of message and let people kind of get in touch with their own, journey, and where they can go to is a great legacy to build, for sure. Yeah. So thank you. So now is just the fun part, which we call this rapid fire. First thing that comes to your mind, and just off the cuff. Okay, your go-to self-anchoring practice.
Self-anchoring practice, sex.
That's a good one. Favorite scent?
Delina by Marley.
A boundary you're proud of setting lately?
I think boundaries are just kind of something I navigate pretty fluidly and easily. It's not something that I have to think too much about. There's always in business, always having to, especially in business, because dealing with a lot of men, I think maybe there's boundaries that have to be asserted there, but in general, it seems pretty easy.
Yeah, you seem very in tune with yourself, where it's like you embrace life, which is really great and stuff. Okay, your favorite place that you've traveled to, because I'm sure you've been everywhere.
Been to a lot of amazing places. India will always hold a very special place in my heart. So much of who I am today is because of my experiences there.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Did you get to do the rest of Eat, Pray, Love, or just Did you go to Italy?
I haven't been to Bali yet. My fiance and I are planning on going there. And Italy, I'm actually going to be getting married in Italy. So,
see, there you go. Yes. Full Eat, Pray, Love. I love that. Coffee, tea, or cocktails?
Gosh, coffee or wine? How do I choose?
I think you can choose both. You can say all three if you like, but coffee and wine, it's like morning and afternoon. Song that instantly shifts your mood?
New York, New York by Frank Sinatra.
Oh,
It's
I love
definitely
that.
my favorite song.
I
mean,
love Frank
I feel like
Sinatra.
it's so overdone, but I love it.
No, it definitely brings a vibrance here. And what is your guilty pleasure?
Shopping.
That's not guilty. You shouldn't feel guilty about that. And last, your favorite book.
Oh, The Jewel and the Lotus.
Ooh.
Yeah, that book, it's amazing. So it's about Tantra and a specific lineage of Tantra, which I'm initiated in, and it's powerful. It's really beautiful.
That's really cool. I think we're going to have to create like a little spark session book club or something like that, because every guest has like so many different good books. I'm like, oh, we should just like write them all down.
Yes.
So final question. What is your one true spark? What is your one truth that keeps you going every day?
There's a quote from one of my teachers, Yogi Bhajan. He would always say, when the pressure is on, start, and the pressure will be off. And I think that's one of the, such a thing, being a woman in business, but just everybody deals with the pressures, but it is really once you get that momentum, taking that first step, then everything can go. And so I remember that quote all the time, because it's a challenge, there's so many things to do. You just got to start.
Yeah.
And that helps me a lot.
Yeah. And not just like think about it all the time, right? Mm-hmm. You just got to start. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for coming on today. I mean, cheers. I actually feel all nice and warm and glowy after talking to you. You are such a very calming presence, and, just very truthful, and you have a really wonderful presence. And so I think we've learned a lot, and I cannot wait to check out Elixr and stuff. It sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining Spark Sessions. Until next time, keep the fire burning.